The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floors. Above, the domed ceiling displayed a perfect view of the stars, showing all the home systems of the member species. 200 alien races had their flags and symbols hanging from the high walls. Among them, one small blue and green flag represented Earth and humanity. Ambassador Jiho Park stood at the speaking platform in the center of the hall. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, a simple black suit with silver trim. Around him, thousands of alien beings sat in their assigned seats, watching him with various expressions of boredom and mild curiosity. The Crithian Chancellor Velmos towered over everyone from his elevated throne. He was a massive creature with purple scales and 4 arms. His voice boomed across the hall. The human representative wishes to speak. Let us hear what trivial matter brings him here today. Laughter rippled through the assembly. The aliens had always treated humans this way. For 200 years, Earth had been part of the Galactic Council, but nobody took humanity seriously. They were too young, too primitive, too emotional. The elder races looked at humans the way adults looked at small children playing at being important. Jiho didn't react to the laughter. He had heard it all before. Every proposal humans made was ignored. Every concern they raised was dismissed. Every achievement they accomplished was called lucky or accidental. He touched the small device in his pocket, the one that would change everything. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Jiho began. His voice was steady and clear. I stand before you today to announce that humanity is withdrawing from this body. Effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies are severing diplomatic ties with the Council. The laughter stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the noise erupted. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some laughed even harder. Some looked confused. Chancellor Velmos raised one of his 4 hands for silence. You cannot be serious, Velmos said. His voice carried amusement. Where will you go? What will you do? Humanity needs the Council. You need our protection, our trade, our knowledge. Jiho met the Chancellor's eyes without fear. We have decided that we no longer need what you offer. We thank the Council for allowing us to participate for these past 2 centuries, but that participation is now over. Councillor Tharn of the Veskiri stood up. He was a thin creature with skin like gray leather and too many joints in his limbs. This is childish. You are angry because we do not listen to your ideas. You are throwing a tantrum. We are making a choice, Jiho replied. A choice to invest our time and energy elsewhere. You contribute nothing anyway, another voice called out. It was Councillor Drexus of the Manthar, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Your technology is primitive. Your culture is simple. Your science is basic. The Council will not even notice your absence. Jiho smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. Perhaps you are right. I suppose we will all find out together. He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the now silent hall. Behind him, the aliens began talking again. Most of them were laughing. Some were making jokes about humans being too sensitive. A few looked thoughtful, but not many. Outside the council hall, Jiho found his aide Minho Choi waiting. Minho was younger, in his 30s, with sharp eyes and quick movements. Is it done? He asked. It is done, Jiho confirmed. Send the signal. Minho pulled out his communication device and entered a code. Across the entire galaxy, that signal reached every human. Every diplomat, every scientist, every teacher, every trade representative, every engineer who worked in council space. The message was simple and clear. Come home. The response was immediate. At the human embassy in the capital city, staff members began packing. Files were deleted. Systems were shut down. Within an hour, the building was empty. The same thing happened at human facilities across thousands of worlds. Dr. Yoonji Kim was in her laboratory when she received the signal. She was one of the most brilliant xenobiologists in the galaxy. For 40 years, she had studied alien diseases and helped prevent outbreaks. She had saved millions of lives that belonged to species who barely knew her name. She looked at her research one last time, then began deleting her files. The aliens could figure things out on their own now. As she prepared to leave, her Veskari assistant approached her. Dr. Kim, what are you doing? We have important work. You have important work, Yoonji corrected. I am going home. But the disease monitoring system, the outbreak prevention protocols, the vaccine research, who will manage all of this? Yoonji smiled sadly. I trained you for 3 years. You told me last month that you understood everything. Prove it. The Viscari looked panicked, but Yunji was already walking away. On a massive space station that served as a trade hub, human merchant Taejin Sung was shutting down the quantum computing network he maintained. A Zentari official rushed to his workstation. What are you doing? This network serves 40-star systems. I know, Taejin said calmly. I built it, but I am leaving now. You cannot just leave. Show us how to maintain it first. I offered to train your people 5 times in the past 10 years, Taejin reminded him. Each time I was told that humans were too primitive to teach Zentari anything useful. You said your own engineers would figure it out easily. The Zentari's skin turned a pale blue, which meant fear in his species. But that was just talk. We need you. You should have said that earlier, Taejin replied. He picked up his bag and headed to the docking bay where his ship waited. All across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Hyeri Nam, the human diplomat who had quietly resolved hundreds of disputes between alien species, walked out of her mediation center. Junho Kang, who designed the communication relay systems that connected thousands of worlds, shut down his access and departed. Sora Bay, the financial analyst who prevented market crashes, withdrew all her stabilization protocols. Back at the council chambers, Jiho and Minho boarded their ship. It was a sleek human vessel, built with technology the aliens called primitive but which worked perfectly well. The ship lifted off from the landing platform and rose into space. Through the viewport, Jiho watched the council homeworld grow smaller. Minho sat in the co-pilot seat looking worried. Sir, are we sure about this? What if we are making a mistake? Jiho was quiet for a moment. Minho, do you know why I pushed for this? Because they never respected us? That is part of it, but mostly because they never asked what we were doing for them. They never wondered why their systems ran smoothly, why their conflicts resolved peacefully, why their infrastructure never failed. They took our work for granted and called us useless in the same breath. They will realize their mistake, Minho said. Yes, Jiho agreed. Soon enough they will understand what they have lost. The ship entered the wormhole that would take them back to human space. Behind them, the human embassy went completely dark for the first time in 200 years. On thousands of worlds, human presence simply vanished overnight. In the council chambers, Chancellor Velmos was already forgetting about the incident. Humans were gone, but they were never important anyway. The business of the galaxy would continue as it always had. He had no idea how wrong he was. 2 months had passed since the humans left. Life in the Galactic Council continued as normal, or so everyone thought. Chancellor Velmos sat in his private chambers reviewing reports. Most of them were routine. Trade numbers, diplomatic updates, and scientific announcements. Nothing unusual. Then the first problem arrived. A Crithian merchant fleet captain named Vornal sent an urgent message. His ships were having navigation problems in the outer rim sectors. The routes that had always worked perfectly were now showing errors. Ships were arriving days late. Some were getting lost completely. 3 vessels had nearly crashed into asteroids because their guidance systems gave wrong information. Velmos read the report with growing irritation. Who maintains those navigation systems? He demanded of his aide. The aide checked the records. Her face changed color slightly. The navigation protocols for those sectors were designed and maintained by human engineer Taejin Sung, Chancellor. Then fix them without the human, Velmos ordered. We have the best engineers in the galaxy. The aide nodded and left. But Velmos felt a small touch of unease. The navigation problems were just the beginning. On the Viscari homeworld, people started getting sick. It began with a few cases in the northern continent. A strange fever that the doctors had never seen before. Within a week, thousands were infected. Within 2 weeks, hundreds of thousands. The Viscari medical teams worked desperately to understand the disease. The chief physician, a brilliant doctor named Kelvin, studied the illness for days. Nothing made sense. The disease seemed new but also somehow familiar. He went through old medical records and found something that made his blood run cold. This disease was not new at all. It appeared every 15 years like clockwork. But for the past 40 years there had not been a single outbreak. Someone had been stopping it before it could spread. Someone had been monitoring for the early warning signs and deploying preventive measures. That someone was Dr. Yoonji Kim. Kelvin looked through her research files, but they were all deleted. She had taken her knowledge with her. He tried to contact her, but all human communication channels were closed. The Veskari were on their own. The plague spread to 4 more continents. Millions became sick. The hospitals overflowed. The Veskari government sent an emergency request to the Galactic Council asking for help. Around the same time, the Zentari were discovering their own crisis. The massive quantum computing networks that ran everything from planetary defense to simple banking systems began to malfunction. At first it was small things, a calculation taking twice as long as normal, a file corrupting randomly, but within days the problems grew worse. The Zentari's top computer scientist worked around the clock to fix the issues. They dove into the code and found something terrifying. The entire network was built on incredibly complex algorithms that prevented something called cascade decay. Without these algorithms, the quantum systems would break down completely. The algorithms were written by Taejin Sung, the same human who maintained the navigation systems. The same human who had offered to train Zentari engineers 5 times and been rejected 5 times. The Zentari tried to reverse engineer his work. They studied his code for weeks, but quantum computing at this level required understanding that took years to develop. They did not have years. They had maybe a few months before the whole network collapsed. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic sector, small conflicts between council members started to escalate. The Draxian Empire and the Talvani Federation had a minor trade dispute. Normally, such disputes were resolved quickly through mediation. But this time there was no mediator. The human diplomat Hieri Nam had always handled these situations. She had a gift for finding solutions that satisfied everyone. Without her, the trade dispute turned into angry accusations. The accusations turned into threats. The threats turned into a small military confrontation at the border. 2 Draxian ships and 1 Talvani vessel were destroyed before the Council peacekeeping force could intervene. And the peacekeeping force had problems of its own. Their logistics network was failing. Supply ships were not reaching their destinations. Communication between units was breaking down. The commander of the peacekeeping force, General Thexnor, discovered that their entire logistics system was designed by a human named Dongyunim. General Thexnor tried to fix the problems using his own staff. They worked day and night, but Dongyun had created something beautiful and complicated, a system that worked perfectly but required deep understanding to maintain. Without him, it was falling apart. More conflicts broke out across council space. The Manthar and the Korvathi almost went to war over a mining dispute. The Zilarian Combine and the Rift Collective had a disagreement about scientific research that turned violent. Small problems that would normally be resolved peacefully were exploding into major incidents. Chancellor Velmos called an emergency council session. The Great Hall was filled with worried aliens. The mood was very different from 2 months ago when everyone had been laughing at the humans. Councillor Tharn spoke first. "We have a crisis. The plague on the Veskari homeworld has killed over 2 million people. Our medical teams cannot stop it. The quantum networks are failing across Zentari space," added Councillor Nexus of the Zentarii. "If they collapse completely, we will lose planetary defense systems, banking, communications, everything. Navigation systems are unreliable in 12 sectors," reported the Krithian Trade Minister. "We have lost 17 ships in the past month," the reports continued. Each one painted a worse picture. The galaxy was breaking down. Councillor Mirix of the Talvani was one of the few who seemed to understand what was happening. She was a small creature with silver fur and large, intelligent eyes. She stood and addressed the council. "We are not facing separate problems," she said. "We are facing one single problem. The humans are gone." "Ridiculous," Velmos said. "These are technical issues. The humans were primitive. They could not have been responsible for preventing all of this." Mirix pulled up data on the main display. "I have been investigating. Every system that is failing had human involvement. Not management, not leadership, but quiet maintenance. They were working behind the scenes fixing problems we never knew existed." "That cannot be true," Councillor Tharn protested. "We never asked them to do these things." "No," Mirix agreed. "We did not ask. They simply did it, and we never noticed because we were too busy calling them primitive." The council chamber fell silent. The truth was starting to sink in, but pride kept most of them from accepting it. "We should contact the humans," Councillor Drexus suggested reluctantly. "Ask them to help us temporarily while we train our own people." "Absolutely not," Velmos declared. The Galactic Council does not beg for help from a junior species. We will solve these problems ourselves. How? Mirix demanded. The Veskari plague has no cure without Dr. Kim's research. The quantum networks will collapse without someone who understands Taejin Sung's algorithms. Our peacekeeping force cannot function without proper logistics. These are not simple problems. Then we work harder, Velmos said firmly. We are the elder races. We built this civilization. We do not need humans. But in his private chambers that night, Velmos was not so confident. He looked at the reports again. The problems were growing worse every day. The Veskari plague death count was rising. The Zentari networks were degrading faster. More conflicts were breaking out. He thought about sending a quiet message to the humans. Just a simple request for technical assistance. But his pride would not allow it. He was the Chancellor of the Galactic Council. He could not admit that they needed help from humans. So he did nothing. And across the galaxy, the systems that humans had quietly maintained for 200 years continued to break down. The cracks were spreading. Soon they would become chasms. On Earth, Ambassador Jiho Park sat in his office watching the news from Council space. His assistant Minho brought him updates every few hours. The reports showed exactly what Jiho had predicted. They are suffering, Minho observed. Yes, Jiho said, but they are not ready to admit why they are suffering. Not yet. How long do we wait? Jiho looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. Until they understand that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned, and right now they are learning what it means to lose something they never valued. The galaxy was changing, and the humans were patient enough to wait. 4 months after the human departure, the galaxy was drowning in chaos. The primary galactic communications network went down on a Tuesday morning, Council Standard Time. It did not go down all at once. That would have been simpler. Instead, it failed in a cascade sector by sector, like dominoes falling in slow motion. The first sign of trouble came from the Outer Rim territories. Planets that had been in constant communication for centuries suddenly could not reach each other. Messages were lost, data streams corrupted, video calls turned into static. Within hours, the problem spread inward toward the core worlds. The Council's chief communications officer, a Krithian named Zelthar, worked frantically to understand what was happening. He had 300 technicians under his command, the best in the galaxy. They tore through the network architecture looking for the failure point. What they found terrified them. The entire communications network was held together by a series of fail-safe systems. These systems were designed to prevent exactly this kind of cascade failure. If one relay went down, the fail-safes would reroute traffic through backup channels. If multiple relays failed, the fail-safes would activate emergency protocols to keep critical communications running. But the fail-safes themselves were failing. Zelthar dug deeper into the code.
He found the signature at the bottom of the primary fail-safe architecture.
It was designed by Junho Kang, a human systems architect, the same human who had volunteered to train council technicians in network maintenance. The same human who had been told that his knowledge was too basic to be worth learning. Can we fix it? Chancellor Velmos demanded over one of the few remaining communication channels. I do not know, Zelthar admitted. This system is more complex than anything I have ever seen. Kang built redundancies within redundancies. Every failsafe has a backup failsafe, but without understanding how they all work together, we cannot repair them. You have 300 technicians, and we need 300 years to learn what Junho Kang knew, Zelthar said quietly. By the end of the week, over 4,000 worlds had lost contact with the galactic network. Cut off from communication, they could not coordinate trade, share scientific data, or call for help. Some worlds panicked. Others simply waited in silence, hoping for restoration. The communication failure triggered an economic catastrophe. The galactic economy relied on instant communication. Trade agreements, currency exchanges, and market transactions all happened at the speed of light across thousands of star systems. When the communications network failed, the economy went with it. Stock markets crashed. Without real-time data, investors panicked and sold everything. Currency values fluctuated wildly because exchange rates could not be coordinated. Trade ships arrived at ports with goods that were no longer wanted because market conditions had changed days ago, and nobody had been able to send updates. The Council's economic advisors tried to stabilize the situation. They implemented emergency protocols, froze certain markets, and attempted to coordinate recovery efforts. But nothing worked. The economy kept spiraling downward. Then someone discovered why. The emergency protocols they were trying to use were based on economic models created by Sora Bay, the human financial analyst. She had spent 30 years studying galactic economics and building stabilization systems. She had prevented 14 major crashes and countless minor ones. Her work was brilliant, subtle, and completely taken for granted. Without her constant adjustments and predictions, the economic models were just guesses. The council economists tried to replicate her work, but economics at a galactic scale was impossibly complex. There were too many variables, too many interconnected systems, too many unpredictable factors. Sora had managed it all with what seemed like ease. Now, without her, the galactic economy was in freefall. Meanwhile, war was breaking out. The Crithian Empire discovered that their planetary defense grid was offline. Every single weapons platform, shield generator, and detection system had stopped working simultaneously. The Crithians were the most militarily powerful race in the Council. Their defense systems protected not just their own worlds, but provided security for dozens of smaller allied nations. The Crithian Military Command investigated the failure. They found that their entire defense grid had been receiving constant security patches and updates. These patches protected against cyber intrusions, hacking attempts, and system exploits. The patches came from a human security specialist named Dong-Yun Im. Without the patches, the Crithian systems were vulnerable. Within days, hostile forces began probing the defenses. Pirates attacked shipping lanes that had been safe for generations. Criminal organizations that had been suppressed for years emerged from hiding. Old enemies of the Crithian Empire saw an opportunity. The situation exploded when the Korvathi Dominion, a longtime rival of the Crithians, launched a surprise attack on a border system. The Crithian defense platforms failed to respond. The shields did not activate. The Korvathi fleet destroyed 3 Crithian colonies before the Empire could mount a desperate counterattack using manual weapons systems. The Crithian Emperor demanded that the Council intervene. The Council authorized the peacekeeping force to restore order, but the peacekeeping force was already overwhelmed. General Thexanor commanded a fleet that should have been able to stop any conflict in the galaxy. But his ships could not get where they needed to go. The logistics network was completely broken. Supply ships delivered weapons to the wrong fleets. Medical supplies arrived at stations that did not need them. Fuel shipments got lost in transit. The general pulled up the logistics network files and saw Dong-Yun Im's name everywhere. The human had created a system so efficient that everyone had forgotten it needed maintenance. Now it was collapsing, and the peacekeeping force was paralyzed. Without the peacekeeping force, regional conflicts multiplied. The Manthar and the Zilarian went to war over a territorial dispute. The Talvani Federation split into 2 factions that began fighting each other. A dozen smaller conflicts erupted across Council space. The galaxy was tearing itself apart. Councillor Mirix of the Talvani watched the destruction with growing horror. She had warned the Council this would happen. She had told them that humans were more important than anyone realized, but nobody had listened. She decided to act on her own. Mirix launched a secret investigation into human contributions to the galaxy. She pulled records from every department, every agency, and every sector. She compiled a complete list of every system, protocol, and program that had human involvement. The results shocked even her. Humans had touched everything. They had repaired infrastructure on 6,000 worlds. They had prevented 87 plagues and epidemics. They had designed trade routes used by millions of ships. They had mediated over 12,000 disputes. They had trained thousands of council personnel in skills nobody realized they needed. And they had done it all quietly, without fanfare or recognition. While the council called them primitive, Mirix presented her findings to Chancellor Velmos in his private chambers. The Chancellor read through the report in silence. His 4 hands trembled slightly as he turned the pages. "This cannot be accurate," he said finally. "Every entry is verified," Mirix replied. "The humans were the foundation of our civilization. We built on top of their work and never even knew it. They should have told us. They tried. Every human specialist offered to train our people. Every human diplomat suggested better cooperation. We ignored them all." Velmos looked at the death counts from the various conflicts. The economic damage estimates. The plague victims on the Veskari homeworld, now numbering over 8 million. The thousands of worlds cut off from communication. What do you recommend? He asked quietly. Contact Earth, Mirek said. Ask for their help. They will refuse. Or worse, they will demand concessions we cannot give. Then we watch the galaxy burn, Mirek said bluntly, because we cannot fix this on our own. We had 200 years to learn from the humans. We were too proud to learn. Now we pay the price. Velmo sat in silence for a long time. His pride warred with his responsibility. His ego fought against reality. Finally, he made a decision. Draft a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we request their assistance in restoring critical systems. Request or demand? Mirek asked carefully. Request, Velmo said, but make it clear that we expect cooperation. Mirek drafted the message, though she changed the wording to be less demanding than Velmos wanted. The message was sent through one of the few remaining communication channels to Earth. The response came back within an hour. Ambassador Jiho Park's words were simple and devastating. We sabotaged nothing. We simply stopped doing your work for you. If you want our help, you will need to offer more than requests. You will need to offer respect. Chancellor Velmos read the message and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The galaxy was collapsing around him, and the only ones who could save it were the ones he had spent 200 years dismissing as primitive and worthless. The irony was not lost on him. 4 months after the human departure, the galaxy was drowning in chaos. The primary galactic communications network went down on a Tuesday morning. Council Standard Time, it did not go down all at once. That would have been simpler. Instead, it failed in a cascade sector by sector. The delegation from the Galactic Council arrived at Earth's orbital station 6 weeks after the communication network collapsed. Councillor Tharn led the group, along with representatives from the Krethian Empire, the Veskari, the Zentari, and the Talvani. Councillor Mirek came as well, though she suspected she was the only one who truly understood what they were about to face. The station orbiting Earth was called Unity. It was a massive structure of gleaming metal and transparent aluminum, with docking bays that could accommodate 1,000 ships. As the Council delegation's vessel approached, they could see dozens of human ships coming and going. Trade vessels, exploration craft, military frigates, and civilian transports moved in perfect coordination. Their traffic control seems efficient, Tharn observed. It should be, Mirek replied. They designed most of the traffic control systems the Council uses, or used to use before those systems started failing. The delegation docked and was escorted to a conference room. The room was simple compared to the grand halls of the Council chambers. Plain walls, a long table, comfortable chairs. Large windows showed the curve of Earth below, blue and green and beautiful. They waited for 20 minutes. Tharn grew impatient. Are they making us wait deliberately? Probably, Mirek said. We made them wait for 200 years. Finally, the door opened. A human entered, a tall man with sharp features and gray-streaked black hair. He wore a simple blue suit with Earth symbol on the collar. Good afternoon. I am Seojin Park, Earth Secretary of External Affairs. Welcome to Unity Station. The delegation stood to greet him. Seojin shook hands with each of them, using the proper gesture for each species. His research was thorough. He knew their customs. I believe you know why we are here, Tharn began. I have some idea, Seojin replied. Please sit. Would you like refreshments? They declined. Tharn wanted to get straight to business. The galaxy is experiencing a series of critical failures. We have reason to believe that human expertise could help resolve these issues. We are here to request your assistance. Request, Seojin repeated. That is an interesting word. 2 months ago, your chancellor sent a message demanding that we return and fix what we had sabotaged. Now you request. What changed? Tharn's skin flushed darker. We may have been hasty in our initial assessment. It appears that human contributions to galactic infrastructure were more significant than we realized. More significant, Seojin said. Another interesting phrase. Let me show you something. He activated a holographic display. Data began to fill the air above the table. List of programs, systems, protocols, and services. Thousands of entries, maybe tens of thousands. This is the archive of human contributions to the Galactic Council over the past 200 years, Seojin explained. Every system we built, every problem we solved, every crisis we prevented, All of it documented, timestamped, and verified. The delegation stared at the data. There was too much to process. The list kept scrolling, page after page after page. You maintained the navigation systems for 43 sectors, Seojin continued. You ran the disease monitoring network that prevented 17 major plagues. You designed the quantum computing algorithms that powered financial systems across the galaxy. You mediated 12,000 diplomatic disputes. You trained over 30,000 council personnel in various technical skills. He paused the display. And you did all of this while the council called you primitive, while they dismissed your ideas, while they laughed at your ambassadors. We did not know, Counselor Nexus of the Zentarii said quietly. You did not ask, Seojin corrected. Every human specialist offered to train your people. Every offer was rejected. You assumed that because we were younger, we had nothing to teach you. That was a mistake, Mirix said. We admit that. Which is why we are here, Seojin smiled slightly. At least one of you understands. Tell me, Counselor Mirix, what exactly does the Council want from Earth? We need your specialists to return, Tharn said before Mirix could answer. Temporarily, of course. Just until we can train our own people to maintain the systems. No, Seojin said simply. The delegation looked shocked. No, Tharn repeated. No, we will not send our people back under the same conditions as before. If you want human help, there will be terms. What kind of terms? Mirix asked. Another human entered the room. She was younger than Seojin, with a military bearing and alert eyes. She wore the uniform of Earth's defense fleet. Commander Jiwon Yoon, she introduced herself. I am here to make our position clear. Jiwon walked to the window and looked down at Earth. Do you know what it was like for humans in the Council? For 200 years, our people worked themselves to exhaustion trying to help, trying to contribute, trying to earn respect. And for 200 years, they were treated like children. Useful children, perhaps, but children nonetheless. She turned to face the delegation. That ends now. If you want our help, you will treat us as equals. Not junior partners. Not primitive upstarts, equals. We cannot just restructure the entire council, Tharn protested. Then you do not get our help, Jiwon said. And your galaxy continues to burn. The delegation sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Mirix spoke. What are your specific terms? A third human entered. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and a formal diplomatic manner. Ambassador Haeyun Cho, she said. I will outline our requirements. She activated another display. 5 points appeared in the hologram. First, full voting rights equal to the elder species. No more junior status. No more provisional membership. Earth gets the same vote as the Krithian Empire or the Zentarii Collective. Impossible, Tharn said. The elder species have those rights because we built the council. You built it on a foundation of human work, Haeyun replied. Next, human oversight of all critical systems. Not maintenance, oversight. Our specialists will train your people, but they will have authority to ensure the work is done correctly. You want control of our infrastructure, Nexus observed. We want to ensure it does not collapse again, Haeyun corrected. Third, a formal apology from the Chancellor and the full Council. Public broadcast to all member worlds. An acknowledgement that human contributions were undervalued and humans were treated without proper respect. That caused an uproar. You want Velmos to apologize publicly? Tharn was incredulous. Do you know what that would do to his authority? I know what it would do to his pride, Haeyun said. But if he cannot admit when he was wrong, he is not fit to lead. What else? Mirix asked. She was taking notes. Fourth, reparations. 200 years of contributions deserve 200 years of recognition. We want funding for human education, research and development, not charity. Payment for services rendered. How much? Nexus asked nervously. We will negotiate the details, Haeyun said, but it will not be a small amount. Fifth and finally, seats for humans on all major council committees. Security, economics, science, health, education, everything. We will not be excluded from decisions that affect the galaxy. Seojin stood. Those are our terms. They are not negotiable. You have 1 week to present them to the full council and vote. If you accept, we begin immediately to repair the damage. If you refuse, we wish you well in your future endeavors. And if we only accept some of the terms? Tharn asked. Then we reject all of them, Jiwon said firmly. We will not return to being second-class members of the council. Either you treat us as equals or you do not get our help. It is that simple. The delegation requested time to discuss among themselves. The humans left the room and the aliens began to argue. These terms are outrageous, Tharn insisted. They are demanding complete equality after only 200 years of membership. They are demanding what they earned, Mirix countered. Everything they ask for they deserve. The Council will never accept a public apology from Velmos. Then the Council will continue to fall apart, Mirix said. Because I have seen their data. We cannot fix these systems without them. We do not have the knowledge or the time to learn. The argument continued for hours. Finally, they called Seojun back. We will present your terms to the Council, Tharn said stiffly, but I cannot promise they will be accepted. That is all we ask, Seojun replied. You have 1 week. The delegation departed. As their ship left orbit, Mirix looked back at Earth one more time. She wondered if the Council would be wise enough to accept reality, or if pride would destroy them all. On Unity Station, Seojun watched the ship disappear. Minho Choi, now his assistant, stood beside him. Do you think they will accept? Some of them will, Seojun said. The question is whether enough of them will vote yes. And if they do not? Seojun was quiet for a moment. Then we wait. Eventually they will have no choice. The galaxy cannot survive without cooperation. They will learn that lesson one way or another. Below them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, peaceful and patient. Humanity had waited 200 years for respect. They could wait a little longer. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so full. Every seat was occupied. Every species sent representatives. The galleries were packed with observers. News networks broadcast the proceedings to thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Everyone knew this vote would change everything. Chancellor Velmos sat on his elevated throne looking older than he had 6 months ago. The crisis had worn him down. His purple scales seemed duller. His forehands gripped the armrest tightly. He knew what was about to happen and he hated it. Councillor Tharn stood at the speaking platform. Members of the Galactic Council, we have presented Earth's terms. You have had 1 week to review them and discuss with your governments. Today we vote. He displayed the 5 terms on the main hologram. The hall was silent as everyone read them again. Before we vote, Tharn continued, I want to remind everyone what is at stake. The communication network is still failing. 8,000 worlds remain cut off. The Viscari plague has killed 12 million people. The galactic economy has shrunk by 40%. 3 major wars and dozens of smaller conflicts are destroying entire systems. We need help. The question is whether we are willing to pay the price for that help. Councillor Drexus of the Manthar stood. I vote against these terms. They are an insult. Humans are demanding equality that takes other species thousands of years to earn. They earned it already, Councillor Mirix countered. They earned it with 200 years of selfless service that we ignored. They are manipulating us, Drexus insisted. They created this crisis by leaving. Now they demand rewards for fixing it. They created nothing, Mirix said, her voice rising. We created this crisis by taking them for granted. They simply stopped allowing us to exploit them. The debate raged for hours. Some counselors argued that accepting Earth's terms would set a dangerous precedent. Others pointed out that the galaxy was dying and they had no choice. Some claimed that humans were overestimating their importance. Others showed data proving that humans were, if anything, underestimating what they had contributed. Chancellor Velmos finally called for order. Enough debate. We vote now. All in favor of accepting Earth's terms in their entirety. Signal now. The vote took 5 minutes. Each counselor registered their decision electronically. The results appeared on the main display. In favor, 123. Against, 77. The terms were accepted. The hall erupted in noise. Some counselors cheered. Others shouted in anger. Drexus stormed out of the chamber. But the decision was made. The Galactic Council had agreed to Earth's terms. Velmos stood slowly. This was the moment he had been dreading. As the first term requires a formal apology, I will deliver it now. He walked to the speaking platform. His movements were heavy, burdened by pride being crushed under necessity. He looked out at the cameras broadcasting to the galaxy. People of the Galactic Council, he began, I stand before you today to acknowledge a grave mistake. For 200 years, humanity has been a member of this council. For 200 years, we treated them as junior partners, as primitives who had not earned respect. We were wrong. His voice was steady, but the words clearly cost him. Humans contributed more to our civilization than any of us realized. They maintained our systems, prevented our disasters, and solved our problems. They did this quietly and without recognition. When they offered to teach us, we refused to learn. When they asked for respect, we gave them condescension. When they asked for equality, we gave them mockery. He paused. The current crisis is not humanity's fault, it is ours. We built a civilization on their work and never acknowledged it. When they left, we discovered how much we had relied on them. And now we must ask them to return, not as servants, but as equals. Felmos took a deep breath. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize to humanity for 200 years of disrespect and dismissal. I acknowledge that we were wrong. I ask for their forgiveness and their help in rebuilding what we broke. He stepped down from the platform. The hall was silent. Then slowly, Councillor Mirix began to clap. Others joined her. Not all of them, but enough. The applause spread through the chamber. Felmos sat back on his throne and sent a message to Earth. Terms accepted. Please help us. The response came from Ambassador Jiho Park himself. We are already on our way. Within hours, human ships began arriving in Council space. They came prepared. Dr. Yunji Kim brought a full medical team to the Veskari homeworld. She reviewed the plague data, cross-referenced it with her old research, and had a treatment protocol ready within 2 days. The plague was stopped within a week. The death toll ended at just over 14 million. It would have been much worse without her. Taejin Sung arrived at the Navigation Control Center with a team of human engineers. They worked for 72 hours straight, repairing and restoring the navigation systems. Ships could move safely again. Trade routes reopened. The isolated sectors began reconnecting with the galaxy. Junho Kang tackled the communication network. It was the most complex repair job. He brought 50 of Earth's best systems architects. They worked in shifts, rebuilding the fail-safes, repairing the relays, and restoring the connections. It took 3 weeks, but they brought the entire network back online. Sora Bay walked into the Council's economic headquarters and immediately started stabilizing the financial systems. She implemented emergency protocols, coordinated currency exchanges, and prevented total economic collapse. Within a month, the markets were recovering. Within 3 months, they were stronger than before. Dongyun Im restored the peacekeeping force's logistics network. He also trained 500 council personnel in proper maintenance procedures. This time they listened carefully. They took notes. They asked questions. They learned. And everywhere the humans went, they trained the locals, not as superiors teaching inferiors, but as equals sharing knowledge. The council personnel were eager to learn now. They had seen what happened when they ignored human expertise. The conflicts began to wind down as the peacekeeping force regained effectiveness. Harinam returned to her mediation work, resolving disputes and preventing wars. But now she had authority. When she recommended a solution, people listened. 6 months after the vote, Ambassador Jiho Park returned to the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. He walked to his new seat at the high table, no longer relegated to the junior sections. He sat among the representatives of the elder species as an equal. Chancellor Velmos addressed the council. Today we welcome Ambassador Park back to this chamber, not as a junior member but as a full equal. Earth now has complete voting rights and representation on all council committees. Jiho stood and bowed slightly. Thank you, Chancellor. On behalf of humanity, I am honored to return. We look forward to working with all of you to build a stronger, more cooperative galaxy. The vote to officially elevate Earth's status was unanimous. Even those who had opposed the original terms voted in favor. The crisis had taught them the value of humility. Over the following years, the galaxy transformed. Human innovation, no longer stifled by dismissal and disrespect, flourished. Human scientists made breakthroughs in medicine that saved billions of lives. Human engineers designed new faster-than-light travel systems. Human diplomats created frameworks for cooperation that prevented conflicts before they started. More importantly, the culture of the council changed. The elder species learned to listen to the younger ones. They learned that age did not automatically mean wisdom. They learned that contribution mattered more than seniority. Councillor Mirix became one of humanity's strongest allies. She worked closely with Seojin Park to create the Cooperative Integration Act, a new set of rules that ensured no species contributions were ever taken for granted again. The act required transparency in who maintained what systems. It mandated training programs for all critical infrastructure. It created formal recognition for technical and diplomatic achievements. 10 years after humanity's return, Jiho Park retired from the council. He was 78 years old and ready to go home. There was a ceremony in the Great Hall to honor his service. Every species sent representatives. Chancellor Velmos presented him with the Star of Unity, the council's highest honor. Ambassador Park, Velmos said, "You taught us a lesson we desperately needed to learn. You showed us that quiet competence is more valuable than loud pride, that helping others is not weakness but strength. That respect must be earned through acknowledgement and given freely once earned. Thank you for your service to the galaxy." Jiho accepted the medal and gave a short speech. "I did not do this alone. Millions of humans worked for 200 years to make the galaxy better. They asked for nothing except the chance to contribute. I am honored to have represented them, and I am grateful that the Council finally recognized what they already knew. We are all better when we work together as equals." He returned to Earth and retired to a small house near the ocean. His grandchildren visited often. They would sit on the porch and watch the stars come out. One evening, his granddaughter Nari asked him a question. "Grandfather, do you think leaving the council was the right choice?" Jiho smiled. "Yes. Sometimes you have to walk away to make people understand your value. We could have stayed and continued being ignored. Instead, we left and forced them to see what we contributed.